Hello and welcome to How Tough Has the Lions Tour Been? It's clearly been a massive thing. I've got my t-shirt with House Kiwi versus House Lions happening obviously tomorrow. So, how tough has this tour been? I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and there was a lot of talk, I'm sorry, thank you for joining me, and there was a lot of talk going into this tour about the schedule being too tough. About playing 5 Super Rugby teams, the New Zealand Maori and the All Blacks 3 times was just, over a period of 6 weeks, was just far too tough a prospect. We've had lots of stories from previous tours saying there's about 8 injuries per tour, and coming to this one there was expected to be kind of a few more. Talking to a lot of my some of the New Zealand mates, New Zealand rugby writers over here, there was a pretty quiet confidence, or well, relatively confidence that the Lions could go, and the only game they would win would be against the Provincial Barbarians in their opening game, and they would lose all of the other games. That clearly hasn't happened. What's happened so far is the Lions beat the Provincial Barbarians. They lost to the Blues. They beat the Crusaders. They lost to the Highlanders. They beat the Chiefs, the Maori, and they've also beaten the All Blacks now. So they've won 5, drawn 1 against the Hurricanes, and lost to the Blues, the Highlanders, and the All Blacks in the first test. So it's 5-1-3 at the moment. 1-5, drawn 1, lost 3, with 1 more to go. So in some ways you could say the Lions have won the tour already. They've won more than half their games. Or they've won half their games, shall I say. They're going to win more than they've lost. But as everyone's always said, it's about the test matches. It's not about the warm-up games so much, and that they will be judged on the 3 test matches, and it's 1-1 at the moment. But I say, a lot of people are saying there would be 8 injuries, and if we have a look, we lost Billy Vunipola beforehand, and obviously Young's dropped out for family reasons. So that wasn't actually really during the tour so much. So we lost Hogg, North, Henshaw. We've lost Moriarty, and then we've lost 1 more, and I've just gone blank as to who it was that's dropped out. Jared Payne with migraines. Yep, that's 5 players we've lost through injury on this tour. So relatively speaking, it's been a low injury count on this tour. And let's be honest, Hogg was team inflicted anyway, running into his own player. But these things happen, that has to count. So we've had 5 injuries so far on this tour, with 1 game to go. And let's hope, touch wood, that we get through that one with no injuries coming out of it. So relatively speaking, from a player welfare or injury point of view, it has been low. Early on, we did have a high number of head injury assessments. In Dan Bigger, I think he's had 3 HIAs in 4 games, having only failed 1 of them. But then he did return from in 6 days to play another game. And we've had other Courtney Laws, and there's been at least 1 other HIA. At one point, they were averaging a HIA per game. Thankfully, that has dropped off. And there has been, from a player welfare point of view, a marked difference with how the Lions and the All Blacks have dealt with HIAs. On the All Blacks side of things, Ben Smith failed a HIA assessment, and we found out since then that actually it wasn't HIA, he has an ear problem. But immediately he was stood down and was said that he would take no more part in any further games in the tour. Naholo took a head knock during the 2nd test match and passed the HIA, but the All Blacks decided not to take any risks and not put him back on the pitch, even though he passed the HIA. Whereas if we look at how the Lions have handled it, and we've seen a lot of players come back on, Bigger, Anthony Watson, just off the top of my head, have all come back on after having going off for head injury assessments. And as I say, Dan Bigger came back after just 6 days to play in another game, not even a full week before he was playing again. So there's been a marked contrast with how the 2 camps have been dealing with player welfare, I would suggest. The other thing that came out of it, and I was talking about this earlier, was the number of games that have been won and lost. A lot of pundits in the UK, especially, were saying that this was too hard a test, especially after the poor performance against the in the opening game against the New Zealand Provincial Barbarians, and then the loss to the Blues. There was this talk of it all being just too tough a tour in too short amount of time. In retrospect, that's not true. I mean, it's the tour that we asked for after the Australia tour, where the warm-up games were basically a waste of time, was that they were full strength, or as full strength as possible, Super Rugby sides. Now, they haven't been totally full strength. The All Blacks can't be expected to turn out for the Chiefs or the Hurricanes midweek and then play a test match at the weekend. But they have been as strong a sides as has been reasonably possible to put out for these games. And that has meant that when the Lions have arrived at the test matches, they have been battle hardened and haven't had an opportunity really to develop properly and put up a contest. We didn't see that in Australia or previously in South Africa either. So yes, has this tour been too tough? No, I don't think so. I think it's been the right level of toughness to enable the Lions to compete when it's come to test time. I think they've played the right teams. I think the opposition has been the right type of opposition, and the respect for the tour has been maintained. So no, I do not think this tour has been too tough. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy, then please do give it your thumbs up on YouTube and share it on Twitter. Do also please feel free to put comments below. Always up for good rugby chat. And finally, up above is a link on Twitter. Is a link to my newsletter. It's down below on YouTube. And obviously, don't forget to subscribe, follow, all of that kind of stuff. I will be at the game tomorrow, so check it. So watch out for my Twitter videos of pre, half-time, and post-game reaction from the stands.